I adjusted my simple black dress and plain pearl earrings, my carefully crafted secretary costume, as I walked into our family's annual Christmas gathering. The dress was from Target, though I could easily afford the entire store. The pearls were real but deliberately modest, nothing that would raise eyebrows. Olivia, still working as someone's assistant. My brother Marcus's voice carried across the room, dripping with the same condescension I'd endured for the past decade. He stood by the fireplace in his designer suit, holding a glass of expensive scotch, looking every bit the successful investment banker he never tired of reminding everyone he was. I smiled politely, clutching my modest handbag that cost more than his monthly salary, not that he knew that. Yes, still at Artemis Global, the company I'd built from nothing into a $4.2 billion technology empire. Though as far as my family knew, I was just a secretary there. You know, my mother chimed in, setting down her wine glass. Marcus could probably find you a better position at his bank. Something with advancement opportunities. I took a small sip of water, hiding my amusement. Earlier that day, I closed a $500 million acquisition deal. Meanwhile, Marcus was still celebrating his recent promotion to vice president, a title we gave to hundreds of employees at Artemis Global. That's thoughtful, but I'm comfortable where I am, I replied, the same response I'd given for years. My family had always seen me as the underachiever, the one who settled for a simple office job while they pursued their grand ambitions. The irony was delicious. 10 years ago, when I first told them I'd taken a job as an executive assistant at a small tech startup, they'd been horrified. All that education for this, my father had demanded, referring to my dual degrees in computer science and business from MIT. Your brother's already on track to make partner, and you want to be a secretary. What they didn't know was that the small tech startup was my own company, and the executive assistant position was just a cover. I learned early that being underestimated could be a powerful advantage. The idea for Artemis Global had come to me during my final year at MIT. I noticed how major corporations struggled with data integration across their global operations. The solution seemed obvious to me, a unified platform that could seamlessly connect everything from supply chain management to human resources. But I also knew that in the male-dominated tech world, a young woman would face endless skepticism. So I created two distinct identities. Publicly, Artemis Global was founded by a reclusive tech genius named Age Phoenix who never appeared in person. Meanwhile, Olivia Chen, the quiet secretary, handled day-to-day operations, sitting in on every major meeting, observing everything, making decisions that nobody realized were actually coming from the CEO herself. The deception wasn't just about avoiding sexism. It was about having the freedom to build something extraordinary without interference or expectations, and it worked brilliantly. Speaking of jobs, my sister-in-law Amanda's voice pulled me back to the present. Marcus has some exciting news. She practically bounced with enthusiasm. Marcus straightened his tie, grinning broadly. Johnson & Reed is planning to modernize their entire global technology infrastructure. If I can land this account, it'll be the biggest deal of my career. I nearly choked on my water. Johnson & Reed was one of the companies currently in talks with Artemis Global for our services. In fact, I had a meeting with their CEO next week. That's wonderful, I managed, knowing full well that Johnson & Reed had already practically decided to go with us. What's the contract worth? $50 million, Marcus announced proudly. Several relatives gasped appreciatively. $50 million in consulting fees alone. This could make my entire career. I nodded politely, not mentioning that $50 million was roughly what Artemis Global earned in a week. My phone buzzed, a message from my actual executive assistant. Urgent, Johnson & Reed wants to move the meeting up. They're ready to sign. Still checking your boss's messages even at Christmas, my mother sighed. Honey, you need to find a better work-life balance. If only she knew that the boss's messages were actually running a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Just staying on top of things, I replied mildly. The gathering continued with its usual pattern. Marcus bragging about his latest deals, my parents beaming with pride at his every word, and occasional concerned glances thrown my way. The eternal disappointment who never lived up to her potential. I excused myself early, citing work responsibilities. Your boss makes you work on Christmas, my father frowned. Someone has to keep things running. I shrugged, not mentioning that I was headed to my penthouse office to finalize the Johnson and Reed contract that would crush Marcus's dreams of landing their business. The next morning, I sat in my real office, not the modest secretary's desk I sometimes use for show, but the sprawling top-floor suite with its commanding view of the city. The wall-mounted screens displayed our global operations, stock prices, and ongoing projects. This was my true domain, where I didn't have to pretend to be anyone's assistant. Ms. Phoenix, my actual executive assistant Sarah, entered with a stack of documents. Johnson and Reed's executives are here for the signing. I smiled, thinking of Marcus's proud announcement the night before. Show them in. The CEO of Johnson and Reed, Patricia Martinez, strode in with her team. She'd never met Ag Phoenix in person. No one had, but she'd had multiple video calls with a digitally altered version of me. Before we signed, Patricia said, "I have to ask, why all the secrecy? Why does AG Phoenix never appear in public?" I leaned back in my chair. Privacy allows us to focus on innovation rather than personality. Would you trust our technology more if you knew AG Phoenix was a woman under 40? Patricia's eyes widened slightly, then she smiled. Fair point. Shall we proceed? An hour later, the contract was signed, not for $50 million, but for $400 million. Complete digital transformation of their global operations. I wondered how Marcus would react when he learned Johnson and Reed had already chosen a different technology partner. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a family group text. Marcus, big news. Meeting with Johnson and Reed next week. Time to show them what a real banker can do. I smiled, knowing that in exactly 1 week, my brother would walk into Johnson and Reed's offices, confident and proud, only to learn that Artemis Global had already secured the contract he thought would make his career. The irony was almost too perfect. While my family pitied poor Olivia for her modest secretary job, I was building an empire that would soon intersect with their lives in ways they never expected. Because Johnson and Reed wasn't just any client, they were the first step in Artemis Global's expansion into financial technology. Marcus's bank would soon be scrambling to compete with our new banking software division. He just didn't know it yet. I picked up a framed photo from my desk, the only personal item I allowed myself in this office. It showed my family at last year's Christmas gathering. All of them gathered around Marcus as he announced his promotion. I stood at the edge of the frame, smiling politely, playing my role perfectly. Sarah, I called out to my assistant, please schedule a board meeting for next week. It's time to announce our expansion into fintech. The pieces were falling into place. Soon my family would learn that the quiet secretary they dismissed for a decade was actually running one of the most powerful technology companies in the world. But first, I had one more family dinner to attend, one more evening of nodding politely while Marcus boasted about deals he'd never close. I checked my watch. Another executive team was waiting to pitch their services to Artemis Global. I straightened my blazer, transformed back into the powerful CEO I truly was, and prepared to evaluate yet another multi-million-dollar proposal. Just another day of living my double life, building an empire while my family remained blissfully unaware that their overlooked daughter was becoming one of the most influential people in global technology. The truth unraveled on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after our family Christmas gathering. I sat in my CEO's office, watching the security feed from our lobby on my tablet. Right on schedule, Marcus strode through the front doors of Artemis Global's headquarters, his confidence radiating through the screen. "I'm here to see AG Phoenix," he announced to the receptionist, straightening his tie. "I'm Marcus Chen from Sterling Brothers Bank." I smiled, switching to the elevator camera feed as the receptionist directed him to the top floor. For 10 years, I'd maintained my secret. Now it was time for the grand reveal. "Sarah," I spoke into the intercom, "please show Mr. Chen in when he arrives." Marcus entered my office with the swagger of someone who thought he was about to land the biggest deal of his career. Then he saw me sitting behind the CEO's desk, and his face went through a fascinating series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, and finally, dawning horror. "Olivia?" He blinked rapidly. "What are you? Why are you sitting there? Where's AG Phoenix?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Please have a seat, Marcus. We have a lot to discuss." But he remained standing, his perfect composure cracking. "You're just a secretary." Actually, I leaned forward, enjoying this moment more than I probably should. I'm Ag Phoenix. I founded Artemis Global 10 years ago. The secretary role was just a cover. He collapsed into the chair, his face pale. That's impossible. You make coffee runs and take notes in meetings. I run a $4.2 billion technology company, I corrected him, and I'm afraid I have some bad news about Johnson and Reed. Right on cue, Sarah entered with the signed contract. I slid it across the desk to Marcus, watching as he read the details with increasingly frantic eyes. $400 million. His voice cracked. They already signed with you. But my meeting was never going to happen. I finished for him. Johnson and Reed committed to Artemis Global last week. In fact, I pulled up our company's latest press release on the wall screen. We're announcing our expansion into financial technology today. Sterling Brothers Bank will soon be competing with our banking software division. Marcus slumped in his chair, his carefully maintained image of success crumbling. Does the family know? They will soon enough. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. You know, Marcus, for years I've watched you boast about your achievements, belittle my career choices, and play the role of the family's golden child. Did you ever once stop to ask why I chose to work as a mere secretary? He shook his head mutely. Because being underestimated gave me freedom. While you were bragging about your latest promotion, I was building something revolutionary. While you were chasing million-dollar deals, I was closing billion-dollar contracts. But why keep it secret from us, from your family? I turned back to face him. Remember when I graduated from MIT? When I told everyone I had an idea for a technology company, you laughed. Mom and Dad said I should focus on finding a real job like yours. So I did it my way, without the family's constant judgment and interference. Just then, my phone buzzed, a news alert. The announcement of Artemis Global's expansion into fintech had hit the markets. Our stock was already up 12%. Your bank's stock, on the other hand, I nodded toward the market ticker on my wall screen, is down 8% on news of our expansion. Funny how things work out. Marcus pulled out his phone, presumably seeing the flood of panicked messages from his colleagues. Sterling Brothers Bank, like most traditional financial institutions, feared tech companies entering their territory. You have to help me, he suddenly said, looking up with desperate eyes. If Artemis Global partners with Sterling Brothers instead of competing. No, I cut him off firmly. I didn't build this company by letting family obligations influence business decisions. Sterling Brothers can compete fairly in the market, just like everyone else. Mom and Dad will be devastated, he tried. Their retirement accounts are heavily invested in Sterling Brothers stock. I walked back to my desk and pressed a button on my intercom. Sarah, please bring in the folder we prepared. Moments later, Sarah entered with a thick manila envelope, which I handed to Marcus. What's this? He asked, opening it cautiously. Documentation showing I've been anonymously supporting our parents' retirement for years. Every month, I've been quietly investing in a diversified portfolio on their behalf. They have more than enough to retire comfortably, regardless of what happens to Sterling Brothers. His hands trembled as he read the documents. All this time you've been taking care of the family? Yes, just not in the way you all thought I should. The intercom buzzed. Miss Phoenix, your parents are in the lobby. They're quite insistent about seeing you. Of course they were. The news about Ag Phoenix's true identity was spreading rapidly through business circles. They must have heard. Send them up, I instructed, then turned to Marcus. Looks like we're having an impromptu family reunion. Minutes later, my parents burst into the office, their faces a mix of shock, confusion, and something else. Was it shame? Olivia. My mother's voice shook. What is all this? The news is saying that you won. Welcome to my company. I gestured around the vast office. Not bad for a secretary, right? My father stepped forward, his expression stormy. Why didn't you tell us? We're your family. Really? I raised an eyebrow. The same family that laughed at my dreams? That pushed me to be more like Marcus. That pitied me for 10 years because I was just a secretary. We were trying to help you, my mother protested weakly. No, I corrected her, you were trying to mold me into your definition of success. So I created my own. I pulled up our company's latest financial reports on the screen. Artemis Global employs over 10,000 people worldwide. We're valued at $4.2 billion and growing. Our technology powers some of the largest corporations in the world. And yes, I built all of this while you thought I was getting coffee and taking notes. My father sank into a chair, looking suddenly old. All those family gatherings, when we tried to help you find a better job, were quite entertaining, I finished for him. Do you know how liberating it is to build something extraordinary while everyone underestimates you? No pressure, no expectations, just pure freedom to innovate. But now, Marcus spoke up from his chair, you're going to destroy my career, our family's stability. I sighed, pressing another button on my desk. A holographic display appeared in the center of the office, showing a complex web of companies and investments. See this? It's a map of how I've been protecting our family financially for years. Trust funds for the kids' education, investment portfolios for retirement, emergency funds, all managed anonymously through various shells and holding companies. My mother gasped. The anonymous donor who saved Aunt Helen's house was me. The mysterious scholarship fund for Cousin Tommy's medical school. Also you, my father whispered. I've been taking care of the family my way, I explained. Not by bragging at Christmas dinner, but by quietly ensuring everyone's security. Even yours, Marcus. He looked up sharply. What do you mean? I smiled. Check your email. You've just been offered a position heading up Sterling Brothers' digital transformation partnership with Artemis Global. If you accept, you'll help your bank adapt to the future instead of fighting it. The choice is yours. A job offer? He sounded skeptical. From my little sister. From the CEO of a $4.2 billion technology company, I corrected him. One who happens to be your sister. The question is, can you handle working for me? The silence that followed was heavy with decades of family dynamics shifting, realigning, transforming into something new. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice small. We were wrong about you, Olivia. So very wrong. Yes, I agreed, you were. But being wrong about me helped me succeed. Your underestimation gave me the freedom to build all of this. I stood up, smoothing my designer suit. No more simple black dresses for me. Now I have a board meeting to attend. Sarah will show you out. Oh, and Mom, you might want to cancel that blind date you were planning for me with your friend's son. The CEO of Artemis Global doesn't need help finding dates. After they left, I sat alone in my office, looking at that old family photo again. The quiet secretary at the edge of the frame had been a mask, a necessary disguise that allowed me to build something extraordinary.